Hey, boys and girls, this is Mike again, your host of Craft Beer Storm, also owner, founder, brewer at Bear Brewing Company in glorious Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Today we have a special show for you. We're going west. We're going to Montana, and we're going to talk to Ryan Newhouse in Missoula, Montana. How awesome is that? He is the marketing director of Beer Now. He's doing a couple of conferences around beer. It's very interesting. I was just like taken aback by just the quality of the knowledge, and also these conferences are just very intimate and just very, very, like, the amount of knowledge you're going to get from these conferences is probably awesome. And I'm trying to get there. I got to figure it out. But without further ado, let's get to it. Hey guys, this is Mike from Craft Beer Storm, and we have Ryan Newhouse on the line. He's the marketing director. He does a couple of conferences, Beer Now. Hey Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you, Mike?
I'm okay. I appreciate you being on the call, and I know that there's a couple of things that you have going on. I guess the Beer Marketing Tourism Conference. You wrote a book, Montana Beer: A Guide to Breweries in the Big Sky Country, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And you're the founder of the Montana Brewery Passport, which is interesting too. Montana is a massive state, so I'd like to hear about that passport as well. Probably have to fly from city to city.
You
can't drive. I was in North Dakota, actually, I think a couple of months ago, and I think Montana's next door, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, like you cross the line and you're in a different time zone. So we're in Williston, North Dakota, which they had a brewery there. It was interesting. So I had some of their beers.
They do have a few. Yeah, they have a few. Yep.
So listen, tell me about your story, how you got started, the Beer Now, the Montana connection. Where are you living now?
Yeah, I very fortunately, I still live in Montana.
Oh, very nice.
So I'm in Missoula, and I think we had two breweries open here. This was summer, so I think we got about 10 or 11 in the city of Missoula. We're just over 80 for the state. So yeah, we got a lot of beer. I think we're actually number 2 in the country per capita, breweries per capita. So we're definitely a lot of good beer. But yeah, I came out to Montana in about 2002 because I was in college and spent some time volunteering in different national parks, and which included Yellowstone. But we drove through Billings, Montana to get to Yellowstone when I was in college, and found some really cool 6-packs of beer in the gas station, and it was from Yellowstone Valley Brewing Company out of Billings, and had like a grizzly bear on the cover and other stuff. So definitely shopped visually. I was certainly new to beer drinking and legal beer drinking, but was always captivated by good flavor. And I had owned a coffee house at the time when I was in college, so like challenging my palate was something I enjoyed. And then I fell in love with Montana during that trip. So as soon as I graduated from college, I moved out to Missoula to pursue a graduate degree in writing, environmental writing specifically, and certainly just sort of continued with my love affair for Montana beer and craft beer. And it took a while, but I was a writer by trade and taking other odd jobs, and that kind of evolved into getting a blog, or basically getting to write for a blog to talk about local food and local beer. And I founded my own beer blog called Montana Beer Finder, which is woefully out of date. But while I was pursuing that, I got to attend several years the Beer Bloggers and Writers Conference because I was very interested in beer blogging and pursuing beer writing. And that's how a publisher found me and asked me to write the one and only guidebook to Montana beer, which was the book you referenced.
Right.
And that was published, I think, in about 2013. So I think it's 5 years old.
Okay.
And what I actually get to brag about is even in this last 5 years, that book is more than twice out of date. So we have more than double the amount of breweries today in the state of Montana than I put in that book 5 years ago.
Man.
So we've certainly, like everywhere around the country, have benefited from the craft beer boom.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been fun. And then within this last year, this conference that I had been attending, this position opened up to kind of take it over, and that's where I'm at now. So I get to create this Beer Bloggers and Writers Conference, which we just changed our name to Beer Now, because we're more now encompassing of all the different media that people use, like podcasting here and Instagram. And we want it to, so we invite people, any beer activist or beer aficionado or anybody who's
That's cool.
telling the good story. That one. Yeah, we have a sister conference called the Beer Marketing and Tourism, and that's the one coming up as well that I'm sure we'll touch on in a bit.
Now, in your conference, do you have a podcaster already, or?
We haven't. We don't have a designated one, but we have a few. That's what we need.
You're talking to one now. You're talking to one now.
Come on out. We need.
I hear Idaho is beautiful. Yeah, my friend grew up in. Well, he didn't grow up, but he was out in Sun Valley for a long time because he loved skiing out there.
Oh,
and he's like, dude, Idaho is awesome. And I'm like, I've never been there, but I'd love to go.
Idaho is great, and we move our conferences around each year, and we try to kind of go East Coast, West Coast somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
So we're fortunate that both of our conferences this year are aligning on the western side of the United States. So yeah, the Beer Marketing and Tourism Conference, which is going to be 3 years old, is in Boise, Idaho, late March 26th through 28th. And 2019, and then our Beer Now conference is here in my home state this year for the first and only time.
Really?
And that's going to be in Great Falls, Montana, in early June, and we're excited for both of those. But but Boise is what a phenomenal beer town. I got to spend some time there this summer. And it is really happening down there.
Really, I'd love to go. It's just I got to find an excuse to get there. I'm out in the East Coast here, pretty much handling the brewery. I have a brewery out here in Portsmouth, but also the Craft Beer Storm podcast is taking up a lot of my time, and just social media. Man, it's a full-time job.
Oh, it is. It never ends. You can hardly ever turn off.
Man, no, it doesn't. And then you have your phone. Like I do stuff on my phone. I edit stuff, post it, answer emails. It's just nonstop. Yeah, but it's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize your conference was kind of like geared towards the whole nation until I went onto the site, and then I saw my friend Audra is speaking there. She's brewed for her ledger.
Brewed for her ledger.
Yeah, I talked to her in the past, so trying to put some stuff together, maybe a new brewery. Put some business plans together, and she helped me out tremendously. She knows a lot about the industry and the accounting aspect. I am a CPA and I do audit, but she really honed in on a lot of stuff that I missed, and I'm like, wow. So she knows what she's doing, and she's speaking out there, which is very interesting. Actually, she asked me to speak to the University of Vermont. Actually, they have a program for individuals who want to open breweries, and we did a webinar, the importance of finance and craft beer. So it's kind of a first-hand account. Like I went through it. It's not just like theory. It's like,
Oh, great.
So I'm like, rule number one, take your budget and double it. That's rule number one.
Yes.
Everybody's going to say the same thing. You think you have enough money, and it's just not enough. It's never enough. So, but it's fun. It's your passion. It's my passion. So you keep going. That's what keeps you going. People try your beer and say, "Oh, that's awesome." That keeps me going. It's fuel. So it's a good
terrific.
thing. But Audra's great. I got to reconnect with her. I just sent her an email. I'm trying to get her on the podcast now. She's, I saw her name. I'm like, I got to have Audra on too.
That'd be great. Yeah, she was just she's been a dynamite to get to know, and we've got to chat and exchange some emails, and very excited to have her out in Boise.
That's
with
cool.
Us,
so Ryan, like a lot of people from around the country come there. What kind of a turnout do you get? Do you get a lot?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, so for the beer marketing and tourism, like I said, this is going to be year 3. We started in Asheville, North Carolina, 2017, and then we were up in Burlington, Vermont. You just mentioned Vermont. We were there this past March, so now we're moving it west. And what is amazing about this conference and all the conferences that we do, I'm part of our organization is called Zephyr Conferences. So we actually do 2 beer conferences, 2 wine conferences, and then a food conference as well for food writers. But we always value the niche market, and we try to help those that maybe don't have the outlet for a professional development conference. The CBC, the Craft Brewers Conference, is incredible. The Brewers Association does a great job with that. But that's probably more geared toward people who want to be a brewer or open a brewery.
Right.
This conference is really the underlying theme to it is beer tourism. And so these are people who are traveling to try new beer in different places.
Yeah.
And our target market, or our target audiences that come out to us, and we get about 250 attendees to our conference from all over the country, and actually all over North America. We get quite a few from Canada coming down, and we've got a few Canadians presenting with us this year as well. So that we get a mix. It's the perfect conference for brewery marketing departments, their heads of marketing, or a taproom manager, and then brewery tour operators, those that are kind of bringing people around from brewery to brewery, maybe like a beer bus or something similar.
Cool.
And then also the destination management organizations, we call them DMOs, or the convention bureaus. These are the cities or regions or even state tourism departments that are just responsible for bringing people to a region or to a state. And then, of course, we also cater to state brewery guilds. So these could be CEOs or presidents or executive directors of these guilds. Because we see it's almost like a funnel. There are all of these different industries that I just went through all have a different role, but it's mostly to bring people to a place. And it might be bringing them to a state or to a region or to a city. And then it might be from the brewery tour operator standpoint to bring them to different breweries. But then the brewery itself is marketing itself to bring people into the tap room so it can sell beer to consumers. And then supporting all of that is the brewery guild, the state guild, that's always trying to make it, as a business model, breweries can be as successful as they want to be and can be. So here's an opportunity to come to a conference, and with all of these people essentially having the same goal of attracting beer tourists. They can learn from one another, see how to leverage partnerships, and then it's that old cliche, that the rising tide floats all ships.
Right. No, I think it's very, I like it. The more I look at this website, I mean, the price is really reasonable to go to the conference. It's 26th through the 28th. And then what attracts me is the ski with the brewers. I love skiing.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
This
is the conference for me.
Yeah, that was so fun. We got we did it in Burlington. We went to Sugarbush. We had the Ski
man.
Vermont team was out there. It's incredible. We're continuing that tradition. Bogus Basin is going to be our ski resort, and Ski Idaho has really stepped up. So absolutely, you've gone to the conference. It's in March. And then we bring out all these breweries and brewers to spend a day or an evening with. And we're going to have a little mini brew fest. Just sort of cap it all off and have some fun.
That sounds like a great event, man. And you know what? You have like 250 people. It's not a lot, but it's great because you can interact with a lot of different people. And just pick their brain and, you know, get a lot of knowledge in the conference. I have to go to I'm going to like a 35,000. He's aiming for 35,000 people. Grant Cardone. I don't know if you know him, but he's renting out like the Marlins Stadium in Miami. But
wow,
he does like 10x. He's like whatever you think you want to achieve, just multiply it by 10, and that's your goal. So, but he's aiming for 35,000 people. So I'm not sure if I'm going to meet him. But 250 people is very reasonable, and I think it's a cozy environment, and like skiing with the brewers. It sounds really cool.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly we're there to provide excellent content, but the networking opportunities with our expo and that our sponsors are offering. We provide some lunches, we provide some dinner excursions. We're going to be out at one of the premier hops farms in the country, the Goodings farm, run by two sisters, or three sisters actually, the Goodings, and we're going to have a dinner out there, like locally sourced, and get to like see this brewery farm or this hops farm up close and personal, and try some delicious beers. So it's fascinating.
That's a great event.
We want it to be experiential. You know, you can get a lot from sitting in a room and taking notes with some great speakers, but you can also get a lot by enjoying some beers and talking to your fellow attendees.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 100%. That's the way to go. You know, experiencing going to a farm, meeting the brewers, drinking the beer. I mean, it's all in one package, and you also have individuals sharing their knowledge with you, like very, very valuable knowledge, where if you tried to do it on your own, it would take you, years to get that knowledge, whereas you can have a person right in front of you that just knows the answer, which is awesome. And then the connections you can make. So I'm really interested in this. I have to figure this out.
Great. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Cool. But, yeah, and so I wanted to have you on. I found you on LinkedIn, and there's a couple of questions I usually ask with everybody, and what we do here is we add a lot of local ingredients in beer, and we believe in community and trying to help out local and bring everything local. I mean, what has your experience been in that? Adding local ingredients, the community aspect.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm fortunate, as we've already said, I'm in Montana, and so we are one of the top barley producing states in the U.S.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're usually neck and neck with Idaho and sometimes one of the Dakotas. I think at our peak we've planted about 1 million acres of barley, and it's really incredible. And it's really not a fabrication to say, if you've had anything from macro beer to micro beer, there is a good chance that barley, that grain or part of it came from Montana.
Really? So
the reason is also that Montana and Great Falls, which is where we're having our Beer Now conference next June, it is home to the largest malting facility in North America, and the second largest one in the world.
No kidding.
The first being in Germany. Yeah, and that's owned by Malt Europe. So not only is this grain grown in Montana, but it doesn't travel very far before it's malted at Malt Europe, and they make it's the pale malts. They only roast at one level, so it's a base malt, but it's for everybody. Craft brewers and certainly the big boys have their own strains. So local for me, in knowing Montana, has always been tied to such a central ingredient in the beer, which is barley, malted barley, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I think having been kind of raised on that in my adult drinking years, it's given me an appreciation to respect all the other local ingredients that go into beer. And I'm always the first, if I see something that seems to feature a local ingredient, I will be there to try that first. I was just out in the Pacific Northwest doing an article for craftbeer.com, and I got to visit several breweries out there, and one of which is Propolis. They're in Port Townsend, Washington, and they do this almost to an extreme, and they're growing herbs, or they're foraging for their local additions that they're often making just farmhouse ales or some kind of Belgian saisons, but they're always featuring some kind of local berry or local herb or spruce tips that they've gathered, and it was fascinating. It adds so much complexity, but there's no better statement than using local ingredients to say, this is where I live, this is where I work, and this is what is around me, and so it's an expression of that place, that time, and that place.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it is community. You're using ingredients that are grown locally. At least you know what they are, right? You know what goes into the beer. Yeah. I guess, right? It's all local, fresh ingredients. With your local brewery is making fresh beer, and you enjoy that, and it's a great community thing. Now, the pale malt, is there a brand that it's sold under, or?
It's often. I'll try and find that for you, but it's Malt Europe. So there's a couple of the big ones, which is Bryce.
Oh, Bryce, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, Bryce that they use, and then I think Malt Europe is the other one. I'm just trying to figure that out.
That's okay. No, I was just curious about it, but I know Bryce.
Bryce, yeah.
So we use that sometimes. I mean, our thing is we use Irish barley, imported Irish barley, as the base of all our beer. That's our thing. But I do use other barley in the interim: U.S., U.K., Canadian, German, depending on the style and what's needed. And then I like to experiment with stuff. But I got to check out that pale malt from Montana. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I would figure they're a little bit north, so I guess the climate is okay for raising barley. And I'm not sure what is optimal, but like I know North Dakota gets really cold in the winter, like frigid, and the temperature there is not really super. Well, sometimes it is hot. It was kind of like the desert where I was. I don't know. How's the temperature in Montana, like where you live during the year? And
well, in the summer we'll have about a week of about 100 degrees plus, and then in the winter we'll have about a week of below zero.
100 degrees minus.
Yeah,
below zero, right? Yeah.
Or we'll have 100 degrees below zero. Temperatures below zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for about a week. It does, but we get all four seasons. And
right.
Which is incredible. We definitely do kind of trend on the colder side, the shorter growing season. We have all kinds of jokes of being like we get 9 months of winter and 3 months of visitors, or 9 months of winter and 3 months of road construction. But no, I think to be fair, we really do experience all four seasons here.
Wow. That's cool. Must be beautiful.
Incredible.
Yeah, I love those. I was eyeing Big Sky going out there.
Oh yeah, that's a treat.
I just hear all really good stuff about it. I got to make it out there at some point. I got to do it.
Yep. And Big Sky has 2 breweries actually, so you can go to.
Oh, is that right? That's I need to go.
Yeah.
I need to go.
Yep.
But Ryan, what do you think about challenges? I mean, you've seen a lot of craft beer breweries and the business. I mean, what do you see the challenges are today in the craft beer business and breweries especially?
I think there's one thing, one, I'm glad that you brought up the idea of local, and I think it's incredibly important. But I think that we can't rest on the laurels of being local only. You also have to be good.
Oh yeah.
And I think, if you're making good beer, that is going to just do wonders for it. But I often get asked, because being sort of one of the Montana beer guys for such a big state, where are we have over 80 or right at 81, I think, breweries. When is that going to stop? How can we really support that many more? But I think that the challenge is, if you want to be your neighborhood brewery, and if you want to drive and have people come into your tap room to buy your beer, the world is certainly still your oyster. But the challenges are always going to be fighting for shelf space, fighting for a tap handle,
Mm-hmm.
and getting into distribution. And I think that the challenge is to how do you remain true to that identity of local, which is important, but also just create an incredible product that is truly reflective of your business model or your particular brewery. And I think that comes from story. I think that you've got to have that story from your beginning of, the why that you do this. And it's the story that I've seen and I've tried to help tell as a beer writer or beer blogger, that make sure that you lead with that, so people have something to really understand when they have that very good beer experience at your brewery or with your beer. Then they also have that story to connect it to as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's great. You're a local. Hey, we're a local brewery. Come on in. But if you have bad beer, it's not good. And also, you need to have a story behind it. Why you're doing it, and 9 times out of 10. Well, maybe it's a little bit more than that for bigger people who just have a lot of money and throw it at it and think that they can make beer. But yeah, it's usually a passion that you have, and you want to make beer, and it's like kind of artistic. Like I said, I'm a CPA audit. That stuff doesn't do anything for me, man. It makes me money to support the family, but for me and my soul, I love getting in and doing new experimental beer and or trying to nail some type of style, really make a tasty beer. I mean, that stuff. And then having people try it, when you're an auditor and you go in and you start doing audits, they're like, all right, when are you leaving? I'm like, well, I just got here. What do you mean, when am I leaving? I'm like, but you go in, you say you're a brewer. They're like, oh my God, yeah. You're making beer. Oh my, where are you? Can I get some samples? When can I come? Can I get, so it's just 180 degrees, and I'd rather do the brewing part. And that's what I'm trying to, I'm trying to shift my life towards that, because I think I'm helping other people, and I want to help craft brewers and trying to trend it local. There's a lot of negative stuff being perpetrated amongst local brewers from the bigger guys, and they make a lot of this quote unquote crafty beer. It's not really craft beer; it's crafty beer.
It is crafty.
It's crafty, yeah. So we want to try to get people to try their local beer, but yeah, I mean there are a bunch of challenges. So and the local craft beer, local craft brew is just very important. It brings people together. And do you see an overall continued shift, I guess, like from drinking macro to local? I mean, in your area too. I mean, well, you're in Montana. I mean, it could be, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's certain parts of the world or whatever that's kind of blue collar, and they're like, look, I want my Bud Light, and that's it. Don't talk to me. I like my Bud Light, and that's it. I like my Coors Light. It's cool. And those beers are not, they have Actually, the quality control in those facilities are fantastic. They're like world class. But because it's the same thing, like they make it in California or they make it in Florida, it's the same beer, which is good. And it's, it's good for a ball game, but a lot of people don't realize that there's other beer out there, local beer. And do you see a trend towards local, or?
I wouldn't have numbers to back this up, but certainly anecdotally, I would say yes. And the reason I would say that there's a continued shift toward local and hyper local is just being tuned into the conversations that people are having about beer. And that's from, levels of social media to my one-on-one interactions with people to friends and family, that I continue to hear people talk about beer or ask me questions about trying this or trying that, or what's gonna go well with this sort of food, or have you tried this new brewery? And so I think just based on the conversations that are happening around me, absolutely. Like it's now daily where I'm hearing people talk about local beer or hyper local beer. So if they're talking about it, then they've got to be trying it. They've got to be curious. And then we're still in this growth period, at least in Montana, where new breweries are opening and welcome, and we're certainly opening many, many, many more than we're closing. We've only probably had 2 close in the last 2 years at most. And then just the more that I get to travel for the conferences and talk to people on a national level, like just the reason that we can have conferences like Beer Now and Beer Marketing and Tourism is an indicator that the market is healthy and the market is good. And so there are businesses like brewery tour operations that can thrive, not only survive, but thrive and grow and branch out into multi-state businesses or be viable in all kinds of different countries. To be able to, and their purpose is just to take people around the local beer scene, educate them about the history of the beers, and give them special access to the breweries that you wouldn't otherwise have just by walking through the door. So for those types of auxiliary or sort of on the outskirts businesses and industries that can survive and thrive just based on a brewery making good beer, certainly I would have to say that we are seeing a shift and support for drinking local.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, and that was one of my next questions regarding maybe a craft beer bubble. Do you think one exists? I mean, because you see the exponential growth of breweries and number of breweries opening. Is there any point where I mean, some people say, yeah, we're at a point where it's probably going to shake out and there's going to be some breweries closing and merging. But you still see these numbers going up. But you're saying it's a healthy environment. I mean, what do you see both I guess in your region in Montana and also, nationwide? I mean, do you see a trend, or are you concerned? Or?
Sure. The bubble aspect, I think if anything pops, that it's, or if the breweries that may close, but two things when we've seen already evidence of this. One, you're a brewery that grows too big too fast. All right.
Yeah.
Like that's a real risk. And that's a risk for any business. No matter what you're doing or producing. If you grow too big too fast, then that might sort of shake out. The other one is going to absolutely be about quality of beer. If you don't make good beer, unfortunately, you're in such a competitive market that it does matter these days.
Oh yeah.
But I think for the, if you're committed and you're passionate and you're making good beer, then yeah, we're not near the ceiling yet at all. My good friend Julia Hers from the Brewers Association is who opens our conferences every year. She's very fond of looking at the number of wineries that are in the United States. I mean, it's an incredible amount. I believe 11,000, 12,000 wineries.
Right.
And these are, wineries that range from growing their own grapes to just importing the juice of grapes and
Right.
making their own wine and
Mm-hmm.
fermenting. But if you look at these breweries, like each and every one of them is about bringing the raw ingredients into your own personal space, putting your own personal perspective and education, expertise and knowledge and desire for making a good beer and really making something from scratch. There's no reason that we can't have at least the same number of wineries as breweries in that regard. So,
Yeah, that's what I always point to. I mean, and people say that the number of wineries is like double the amount of breweries right now.
yeah.
So if you look at that, logically, I mean, wine is, and wine is, I mean, wine, you can't really drink a pint of wine. You have to drink a glass of wine because the ABV is like double. But, and beer is consumed. I mean, I'm not sure what the statistics are, but they're like staggering the amount of gallons, like per year, like per capita that people drink.
Absolutely. Which again, I'll point to Montana because we're usually up there in the top three, if not number. We're about.
I think New Hampshire was like. I'm in New Hampshire. I think they were number one a couple of years in a row. I'm not sure where they are
right.
now.
New Hampshire was,
like per capita,
The per capita. I think we were about 42 gallons a person.
So that was one of my arguments. Yeah, to get like a loan. I'm like, look, we're in a state where it's like number one per capita drinking beer. So it's a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. The whole beer. Now, another quick question: the laws in Montana. I mean, can brewers self-distribute, or do you need a distributor? How does that work?
Great. I'm glad you brought it up. It's as in any other state, the laws are contentious. But yes, brewers can self-distribute, and many do, actually. Several do. The few of our laws that kind of catch people off guard are the two main ones. If you brew on premise, then you're limited to serving no more than 48 ounces of beer per person per day to be consumed on premise.
Oh, wow.
So that doesn't include, bottle sales or crowlers or growlers.
Okay.
So that's either broken up to 3 16-ounce pints or 4 12-ounce servings. You're limited to your consumption. The other one that catches people off guard is that breweries have to close by 8 p.m. So you're not going to be there late. And that is that's been in place partially to safeguard, I guess is the right word, the taverns and bars that are around. Like if you're going to be consuming alcohol after 8 p.m., then the bars want to be able to provide that to you and maybe not have the competition of a brewery being open that late. A lot of the breweries don't really mind being able to close at 8 and go home to their families. So it's it's just from a consumer perspective. Until recently, we also had a production cap where breweries could not sell their beer on site if they produced more than 10,000 barrels a year. And for Montana, that mostly affected Big Sky Brewing Company, which is about 60,000 barrel production. So they could actually never sell a pint of beer on their premise. But we actually just got that law changed here within the last legislative session. We raised that cap to about 65,000. And so now, you can sell beer where you make it, and make more than 10,000 barrels a year if you like. So we definitely have a few little quirky laws, but we
Now,
make the best of it.
the APM, I'm just curious, does that include brew pubs as well? Like they serve all kinds
Uh,
of, or how does that work?
yeah. So there's the other part of this. You can get some all beverage licenses around the state. There are some ways that you can get around it. One of the other quirky laws that we have is that a brewery cannot also serve food. So there
Oh
are
yeah.
the ways that people get around. You either bring food in, or you have a food truck, or you have a different license and a different business owner that's sort of in the same space. Um, but to the brew pub part, there are some businesses that have kind of figured out how to get that other license to open past 8 p.m. However, if you are getting a license that includes serving of liquor, the liquor licenses are on a quota system. So, for instance, just to give you kind of a sense of where that is, in the county of Missoula, where I live, where there are about 11 breweries, a liquor license would cost about $750,000 to buy
What?
just for that license
What?
to allow you to serve.
It's like $750,000.
$750,000,
Holy
because we're
moly!
on a quota system. So depending on, and that value changes, of course, where
Just
you
for
live
the
in the
license.
state, but it's still, we're on a quota system. So there are
Yeah,
some definite
these
restraints that,
states are just like each one is just, I don't know. I don't want to say bizarre, but more these antiquated laws that really, they really don't help anybody. But I mean,
yep.
slowly these laws are being changed. As you go from state to state, it's a slow process. But I guess I understand when the brewers want to. They work hard. These guys, the local brewers, work hard, and they want to go home at 8 o'clock. They're like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta go.
right.
I'm done. It just wears you out. Brewing like a brew day here is just like a 12-hour day, and at
Wow.
the end of the day, you're just like, I'm done, man. I just got to sit
Yeah.
down because it's just so very manual. We kind of put farm equipment together, and we got a tank from a pharmaceutical company, but we
Wow.
figured it out, and we make beer, so it works for us. But it is a tough day, yeah. So yeah, Ryan, this has been an excellent conversation. Very interesting, a lot of
Oh, thank you.
information. And one last thing, why do you
Yeah.
think why do you think people should drink local craft brew? Like, to sum it all up.
Yeah. One, I hope they drink it because personally they are curious. That's the main thing is if you're curious about beer, I think you're going to be curious about a lot of other things in life. And I love that. I love seeing that in people, like a curiosity. And I'm sorry, but this is going to be a bad pun, but to drink it all in, to enjoy life to the fullest. I think that there has to be a certain level of curiosity in life and what you're out there to seek. So I think that's my hope as to why people are drinking local, because they want to try, they want to have some sort of tactile experience that engages lots of senses, and we've got to understand our own backyard before we can put all of that into perspective and see, like, how does my place, how does my community, how does my local brewery compare to the world or to a larger scale, or these other places I might visit. So that would be my real mantra, is to, like, why drink local is because you want to know, you're curious, you want to know where you're from, so you can be able to talk about it in a larger scale or with a bigger scope. um, and that's aside from all the great factors of supporting local business and all that. But yeah, just being curious is a good enough reason for me to drink local.
Yeah, you summed it up there. I mean, that's the reason why I got into it. I drank all this mass-produced beer for years, and I thought I knew what beer tasted. Then I started drinking local craft beer, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. This is real. This is good stuff. And especially coming up to New Hampshire here, I came from New York. I had a job up here. But I always had the idea of doing the beer with the Irish barley because I always ate the bread in Ireland. I'm like, this is awesome bread. Why doesn't it make a good Irish beer in the U.S.? And I said, I could probably do this here, because we have and I had a lot of support around me, a lot of good brewers, and they're making good stuff. And it turned out okay. I'm still alive, but you follow the passion and you do what you got to do, and then. This podcast that I started is kind of a result of just still seeing a lot of the mass-produced stuff in the stores, seeing tap lines where they don't even have one local brew on tap, not one local beer. That kind of annoys me. And, I'm trying to encourage people to go in, wherever you are in the world. And if they have just this mass-produced beer on, get the manager and say, look, what's going on? There's a lot of local breweries and you should have at least one tap line for them, because people want that. And I think a lot of the larger chains actually are getting it. I've gone into Applebee's and they're like, yeah, we have discretion now. I'm like, really? You have discretion? Buffalo Wild Wings too. I had conversations with these guys. I have another call next week and they're looking to bring in, some local beers, so I think the tide is changing and they're getting it now. And it's a good thing. So, well, hey, Ryan, this has been a great call. I appreciate your time and what your efforts. I think it's tremendous. I would love. I got to figure out how to get to this conference because it sounds so cool.
Great,
and
appreciate that.
Especially the skiing part is wow.
Oh
man.
yeah,
drinking beer and going skiing and just experiencing the whole area. I've never been to Idaho. I got to figure this out.
So many reasons, yeah.
Man, I got to do this. All right. So, Ryan, I appreciate it again, and I want to stay in touch with you.
Great.
And, I appreciate you being on the podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good. It's been super fun. Really appreciate your time, Mike.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was Ryan Newhouse. He was the marketing director of Beer Now. You heard about the conferences that he's putting on. It sounds really awesome. Boise, Idaho. I've never been out to Idaho or Montana, but I love to go to both. And, the quality of the conference that they're going to put on is it seems really good. The people that I know one of the speakers there, and she's awesome. Very knowledgeable, and if that's the caliber of people they're going to get out there, it's going to be really worth it to get out. So that's what we have for you today. If you like our podcast, if you like what you're hearing, you like our guests, you like the show, please go onto iTunes and give us a review, give us a rating, subscribe to the podcast. That helps us out, and it gets the word out that we exist. There's like 550,000 podcasts out there, but we're aiming to be number one in the craft beer category. Got to aim high, guys. 10x, baby. So that's where we are for this evening or day, whenever you are listening to this. But I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate all your support. And let's go forward and tell people that there is an alternative to watered down mass-produced beer, and that's great local craft beer. So get on it. Get to your local brewery and support them. All right, guys. See you next time.